Oh shit, we made it to our second episode.
What a surprise. How did we do it? Well, here we are, our second episode, and what are we talking about today?
Should you do an ICO? So I have to be honest, I've bootstrapped my first two companies. I managed to raise some money the traditional way the third time around, and I've thought a lot about doing an ICO. Frankly, I'm just happy at this point I've stopped calling it an ICO, so I'm moving in the right direction. But I'm an advisor to your company Digits, which is obviously going through that process right now, and I thought, why don't we dig into this one?
Absolutely. Well, I literally could not have chosen a harder time to do an ICO. But what I've learned through the process, and it is, should you do an ICO is a huge question, right? And I think we can probably cover that process over quite a few shows. But it is a hell of a process. In fact, I would say genuinely, I've never worked so hard in my life. And the way I've kind of treated it, and I think you have to treat it, is almost like a public company. So the first question you have to ask yourself when you're even starting to think about doing an ICO is, does my product or company have relevance to the blockchain or to the crypto market? Because eventually I think ICOs will fund lots of different things, but really the successful ICOs right now are the ones that are in the blockchain space.
The other problem I'm noticing is I think there was, certainly at the end of last year, and I think rapidly diminishing now, is this kind of illusion of like this free money giveaway, and there was this kind of mad rush of people, I think, trying to raise money in this way. Maybe frankly that had failed at raising money in traditional manners. Sometimes it maybe is because investors don't get it, or this is just an easier path, but I also feel like sometimes it was because maybe it wasn't the best idea, and they're like, I'm gonna, God bless their determination as an entrepreneur, like I'm gonna raise that money somehow, and they've jumped down this ICO path even if they don't really fully understand the implications.
Yeah, and I think it is, a lot of funding is being in the right place at the right time. You can have the best team with the best technology, but if you get your timing right, it really, and you have the concept right, what we saw last year was basically anybody could raise money as long as they were doing an ICO because there was pent-up demand. I think a few of those would probably end up in prison because they really were fraudulent ICOs. But the vast majority of them, I think, were genuinely trying to build something. They may not have had the experience or the business acumen to deliver something, but generally, I think a lot of the ICOs last year were legitimate. And I think this year what you're going to see is a consolidation in the market where you're going to see super solid ICOs, but they're going to be much more regulated. And this is what the SEC is coming in with. And I think to your point on this kind of cycle, you were talking to me earlier about this kind of, what did you call it?
Trough of disillusionment.
Yes, tell me about that.
So this is, I think it was Gartner putting out, it's the hype cycle, and this kind of sense where as something starts to take off, you kind of enter this period of hype, it hits this kind of mania stage, and it's like any new technology frequently goes through this, like the blockchain, and then effectively there's a crash when I think the overhyped state doesn't live up to the hype effectively, and then you see this kind of panicked crash, and then this dip here, and they call it the trough of disillusionment. It's that moment where everyone's like, maybe this wasn't what we thought it was going to be, maybe this is never going to bounce back, who knows if blockchain in this example is really relevant. And then what happened is frankly the real stuff, because all the hype stuff that really didn't make sense, the why wasn't there that you talked about before, the real stuff starts bubbling back up, it survives, it starts to come back up, and then people go, oh, those are actually really good uses of this technology, and I believe in this tech again, and it will inevitably come back up again.
And that's what I say to people. I mean, a lot of people, when I started the ICO, they were just like, well, it's just another dot-com bubble. Sure, it is a bubble, and I think the bubble has probably burst now. But the point is that look what came out of the internet bubble. The biggest companies, the best technologies we've ever experienced as a species came out of the dot-com boom. And the same will be true of the blockchain. It will over time mature, and it will become a really powerful decentralized way of disseminating information. But the major risk is actually not the application of the technology, it's overregulation. And that's what really concerns me, if we really are regulated out of the market.
You can't help, and I say the following with the greatest amount of respect, but after watching, let's say, Facebook, Zuckerberg, Senate hearing the other day, you can't help but look at some of the questions they ask and really go, I'm very uncomfortable with these people designing the laws that exist around the blockchain and potentially cryptocurrencies. And I think there'll be a tendency to over-regulate because you just get this inherent sense that they really truly don't understand the tech.
Though there is one counterpoint to that, and what I will say is that technology tends to run ahead of legislation. So I suspect as soon as it gets to the point that legislation comes in, we'll already have out-innovated those regulations into something else. And I think what you're going to see is that blockchain as a concept is a very wide technology that covered a lot of areas, but I think ultimately now people have got this in their head that they can build technology that can't be controlled. You're going to see more of that.
Even if you look at the things that were happening during the original dot-com boom, all of that was centralized, and the fact that this is primarily decentralized, I think is like you said, going to make it harder to regulate. And I honestly feel that the pace of innovation is potentially exponentially faster than it was in 1999. I'll tell you one great thing I did get out of all the crash of the dot-com boom. I bought a lot of really inexpensive Aeron shares that year from bankruptcies, so I did get a lot of nice shares from that. That was a nice side perk.
Nice, yeah. I mean, there were quite a few. I can remember that time, and it was, I mean, even this period, starting a business is never easy, right? It's so hard, and when you are in a down market, it is incredibly hard as an entrepreneur to raise funds, and we're very lucky. We have an amazing team and an amazing concept, and we're getting great traction in the market, but it's still really hard.
But you're also a real business. I can't tell you how many things where, I feel like it's one thing, respectfully, when you see someone raising $1 million and a half dollars, and they're what I call a smile on a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And now I think we get, and that's okay. But it does scare me when you see a lot of the kind of smile on a white paper.
Yeah.
Raising $40 million.
Yeah.
Is pretty scary.
Yeah, and that's why I've treated like a public company, is that we've had to do everything properly. We have a great SEC lawyer on our advisory board. I treat it like a public company. Our data room itself is exemplary, the same as you would find with a public company. And you have a responsibility to spend investors' money wisely, and that's got to be key. And even though we're on a ship, this ship is not a ship that crypto brought. I earned this over 30 years of hard work, but it's really important that you do. People's money is got to be protected, and this is kind of the thing about regulation. Is I don't think all regulation is bad. I think there has to be a certain level where people can step in and go, no, this is fraud, because it is very obvious when somebody's taking out $50 million out of the market and blowing it on parties and other unmentionable things that happen in Miami.
Yeah, or Silicon Valley.
Or Silicon Valley. More in Silicon Valley these days.
It feels more like it. Yeah, that show's not so much of a parody. The only thing I worry about is, the companies I've done personally, the companies I've done best with, were actually the ones I bootstrapped. And there's something ironic about that, but I feel like it forces you to be really lean.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you raise too much money for some of the companies that maybe are not well prepared for it or have no traction at all, it can give you this kind of false sense of confidence.
Yeah.
And I think, I think that's one of the things where I've seen some of the ICOs where releasing the money at milestones and things like that, and releasing the tokens, I think maybe is a healthy way for people to go.
Well, there's that interesting thing that happened in Russia, or is in process in Russia right now, where they basically allow the token holders to draw back their cash if they don't reach the milestones, which I actually think is a bad idea, because as a startup, you've got to have some kind of visibility on where you are in the future, because if you can't tell your staff that they're going to be paid in 3 months, you're not going to attract the best people, and it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy where the thing falls apart because of the very regulation that it's designed to protect. And you do see this a lot with legislation, which, the kind of core of it was designed to be very good. It was a good intention, but when it's actually put into the marketplace, it actually has the absolute opposite effect that the market was expecting.
So, we've got hopefully lots of ship moments and stories.
There's definitely been a few ship moments
that I think we want to share in the future. So what are we going to talk about on next week's episode and continue our ICO conversation?
Well, it's clearly got to be a ship, right? I don't know, what are we talking about next week?
I think it's probably best that we start going beyond the why to really saying, what's the first couple steps? If you're really serious, if you know you're the right fit, what are the first steps that you should take?
Well, I tell you the real challenge with that. Having been in this process now for 5 months, it almost changes every week. It really does. It can change on a dime. When the SEC come out with something new, they're like, okay, everything changes again. So what I will tell you is in some of the next shows about some of the things that have changed in the last 3 or 4 months and how I think it's going to change in the long term.
That sounds great. So keep tuning in, and we're glad you're here for this week's episode of Oh Ship.
Oh Ship.